I think what we're coming to the conclusion here is that yes, it is valuable, but it's valuable based on what you can leverage it for, what you can do with it, what you take and apply it with. Because college is not just about the piece of paper; it's more about the experiences. It's more about what you learn. It's more about the people you connect to. It's more about advancing your mind as far as being able to, like you said, articulate your words better. So it's so much more than just a piece of paper. And so, given that, what
Absolutely.
I what I have decided to do in our classes when we come back in the fall, I've decided that I'm not going to focus so much on teaching students to get the piece of paper because it's not really about the piece of paper, right? We tout that so much, even though society says it is. And ultimately, yes, we want to get a degree. But I've often said this, and many people don't get what I'm saying when I say this, but the degree should not be what you're pursuing to get. It's what you have to become to get the degree is what makes college valuable, right? To be
Absolutely.
to get to the college degree, I've got to learn how to be responsible for my own life. To get to the college degree, I've got to learn how to listen and pay attention in class. To get to the college degree, I've got to learn how to discipline myself and learn how to read and learn how to study and learn how to comprehend things. All of those pieces that you have to do to get to the degree is what your college
Mm-hmm.
degree should be about, not just some certificate that you hang on a wall, right?
Right.
So
Right.
teaching students that the ultimately it's not the college degree that we're pursuing, it's what we have to become to get to the college degree is what we're pursuing. And if we teach it that way, I think it becomes more valuable because now it's more about you as an individual and not about a piece of
Absolutely.
paper. Okay, does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And I think that that's awesome because, you know, it's almost like, when you hear people say, well, I wish I had $1 million. And then I always hear people who are a little more wise say, well, if you had $1 million with no, knowledge of financial stability,
Sure.
or,
Sure.
if you're just as, gullible or easily swayed with that $1 million
Hmm.
as you are with $1,000, what good does it do you? To me, that sort of sounds like the same thing. Like if we give them those skills, the necessary skills to be able to handle that degree, or the necessary skills to be able to make that degree or leverage it and make it work for you, then when they get it, it's not a question as to how am I going to do this or what's going to happen and that kind of thing. And that's so key in this generation because they call it the microwave generation and they don't call it that for no reason, right?
Yeah,
A lot
most
of them
definitely.
just want what they want in the moment and they don't think about long term of, once I get it, what's then what? And we're sort of flipping it back around and giving them those necessary tools. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just my mantra or my mindset is going to be as we approach the fall semester is I want students to understand I'm not focusing on you getting no college degree. That will ultimately happen eventually. What I want to focus more on is what kind of person do you or are you going to become on the process, on the journey to get into that degree? Can you be
Hmm.
responsible? Can you handle your emotions? Can you articulate your words? Can you speak professionally? Can you do all those things and develop those skills that will then help you elevate and leverage your life to get to the point where you're successful, right? Don't focus on the
Right.
degree. That's going to come. Let's focus on what you have to become to get to the degree. So that's going to be the
Right.
way I'm going to proceed. And I think that's going to be very valuable in my
It's gonna be
classroom, I think.
interesting.
Yeah. All right. So let me switch gears a little bit more. So we didn't get a chance to ask this question because we've been talking about K through 12. We've been talking about higher ed, kind of mixing the two in here together. And so, given the fact that we do have some issues in our educational system, what are some things that you think should change, or what do you think some things that you would improve on when it comes to the K through 12 experience? We can talk about the standardized testing. Should we improve those or remove those? We can talk about how they're teaching things in certain grades. What are some things that you think that, just in your opinion, we could change or adjust when it comes to our K through 12 experience?
Um, just from my experience, I would say we could focus more on teaching the student instead of the material. Almost removing the pacing guide um,
Mm.
as a whole and allow the pacing guide for each. And this is going to take a lot of time. It might take two teachers in a classroom instead of one, in the K through 12 system. But putting the pacing guide in place for each particular student, because student A might be on level B, but student B might be on level Z. And so how do we blanket teach them like that? That's how we create learning gaps for students. And I've seen that firsthand where you have students who are might be in the 10th or 11th grade on a third or fourth, fifth grade reading level or math level. And how does that happen? It's because of blanket teaching, where we teach to
Mm.
the class and not the student. And it's because of, I just lost my train of thought. Blanket teaching, and it's
Well, let
because
me
of
ask you.
not paying attention. Oh, go ahead.
Let me ask, because you mentioned something, the pace guideline you called it.
Pacing
Just for
guide.
me, yeah, the pacing guide. Just for me, and the sake
Hmm.
of maybe the audience too. What does that mean in the K through 12 arena?
So if you go to the South Carolina Department of Education's website, they have, like, if I go there and I'm looking up math, let's say I'm teaching geometry, they will have the standards listed that need to be taught, and then they will have what they call the pacing guide, which literally says you should spend this amount of days on this particular um, standard. You need to spend this amount of days on. So it literally paces you throughout the semester to ensure
Wow.
that you are going to be able to teach everything in that semester, because how else do we know, right? If that wasn't the
Mhm.
case, we would have students hold us back if they didn't really understand, or we might go too fast through a topic that we really probably should have taken 2 days on. And so that's what I was referring to.
So
But
what
I
you're saying though, so what you're saying in that scenario there, if I'm being told as a teacher to pace myself over the 180-day period to be at a certain spot each day or whatever, if I've got little Johnny over here who is not on task with that, then what happens to him? Does he just get left behind and you just move on to the next day because you're on a pace system?
Sadly, in majority of schools, he gets left behind. And then the next year, he gets left behind because he's still playing catch up. And so then it's like a snowball effect. And so that's why I was saying, like, I feel like we should cater that to the student. And when I was at Meeting Street, only school I've ever known to do such an amazing job at this. That's why it was
Sure.
probably my favorite school. And it's the motto that I have for my
It's a good
tutoring center
school.
as well.
It's a good school.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
adopted their motto for my tutoring center because they do exactly that. And they have two teachers per classroom, though, because it does. It's going to take somebody pulling little Johnny to the side and saying, okay, look, you didn't grasp this in 2 days like you were supposed to. Let's give you an extra day. And then I'm also going to catch you up to what they're doing. And now we're going to throw you back into the pot so that you can learn under the blanket like everyone else. We don't have the time to do that. It's what most schools think, but we do. We have to make the time to do it, because if we don't make the time now, as time goes on, there's not enough time to make up
Sure.
the ground. And so I do feel like we just have to be more cognizant of, at an early age, teaching the student in those primary grade levels, teaching the student and not the material, because it really matters. And that's why Meeting Street is as successful. That's their secret. That's why they're as successful as they are, is because they literally take these students and say, okay, this is where you are. They show them this is where you should
Hmm.
be. This is
Hmm.
where you are. This is how far we want to move you. And so the students and the teachers and the parents and everybody are all on the same page. And now we can, watch you grow, and you can be
Sure.
excited. And now again, there's that investment word again. You're more invested because,
Mm.
yeah, you might be making D's on third grade level, but you really just moved from first grade level to second grade level in a year, which is amazing. And so I think, if we could change anything, that's what it would be, because that's ultimately what I'm doing at my tutoring center. It's just super hard when the teacher is still moving 1,000 miles an hour and you got somebody that's 5 grade levels behind.
That speaks so much to the origin of school in the first place, which was to get everybody on the same page quickly, teach everybody the same material, teach everybody the same level, so we can hurry up and get people out, so we can get them a job. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that factory mindset of just mass production of hurrying up and getting everybody on the same level, hurrying up and getting everybody to the same level of knowledge, so we can hurry up and get them out of the school system to get them a job. It just sounds
Mm-hmm.
so much like, I mean, if I was a Rockefeller or some rich person and I wanted a lot of people to be produced as far as getting jobs, that would be the perfect model. Like, just get everybody on the same level, hurry up and get them there, and when you get them there, push them out. But you're saying, and I think we all agree, that that's not the best model, because there's not everybody's going to be on that same level. Not everybody's going to learn as
Yes.
quickly or as fastly. And now those folks are getting left behind, which also ultimately creates those gaps you talked about. So, yeah,
Yes.
that's pretty bad. Well,
It's
that's one thing that
horrible.
could be fixed. Yeah, that's one thing that
Yeah.
definitely could be fixed. Yeah. All right. Last few questions, because we're gonna wrap it up here in a little bit. But one of the other questions I have too is there are a lot of teachers who are leaving this school system. There are a lot of teachers who are deciding they don't want to teach any longer, who are hanging up their hats. Some folks are retiring and just never coming back. Not retiring, never coming back, but they're just deciding I don't want to do this anymore. Right? I'm done with teaching. And you, as because of that, we have a teaching shortage in our state and probably in our country. So, what do you think are some of the main factors that are leading to teachers leaving the profession of teaching? What are the main factors of that?
Number one, I would say pay because you hear that more than anything.
Yeah.
And just like with any job, if you're not paying the person what they feel like they deserve for the work that they are doing, and it's not equal or close to being equal, then they almost feel like they're at their, at their own leisure. They're doing this at their own leisure. And so as soon as they feel like they want to hang it up or give it up, they're going to do that. And so speaking to our state, the great state of South Carolina, we should definitely probably adhere to that because you hear that more than anything.
Yeah.
But also, I would say just from being in the K through 12 system, in particular before I, you know, came to higher ed, I would say just the paperwork and having to deal with the things beyond the classroom. The classroom in a K through 12 system, from my experience, is probably 60-40, closer to 70-30 in terms of what me getting to do what I love, which is teaching students, molding students, seeing that light bulb come on versus me dealing with administration, parents, disciplinary issues, paperwork,
Hmm.
IEPs, 504s, you name it. And so that's where the workload comes in. This is the part that 70% is the part that they're not being paid for. Whereas the 30%, that's what they see us doing. That's what the typical
Hmm.
teacher does in everybody's mind. All these people who are in the higher ups that make these decisions on what teachers make, that's what
Hmm.
they see us doing. But what we actually do in those classrooms is far greater than what the typical teacher looks like he or she does. And so I would say just dealing with the things outside of what you love to do, which is teaching students. You don't really get to do a lot of that. And then even when you do that, you can't be creative because I got a pacing guide. Because I
Hmm.
have this
Hmm.
thing that tells me exactly what I need to
Hmm.
do, which is another reason why I love higher ed. They tell me what to teach. They don't tell me how to teach it. They tell me what,
Hmm.
because even down in K 12, you even got some schools that learn, like for math, I have to teach it exactly this way. If your student comes to school and they get the right answer and they can show me how they got that answer. If they don't do it my way, they still get it wrong. Like, what? And so, where's the
Yeah.
creativity here? What are we teaching? And so, again, just dealing with all of the circus arena type stuff outside of teaching is why they're leaving.
Yeah,
It's
and
not worth it. It's what they're
another thing I
thinking.
will say to you that since they think that 30% is what teachers do, I love to hear people say, "Well, what are teachers complaining so much about? You get the summer off,
Oh,
right?"
Lord.
And they throw it up there like every day,
Yes.
yeah, but what you don't understand is that these teachers are not getting paid in a lot
They
of
don't get
cases during the summer
paid.
either. So yeah,
Right.
they're getting the summer off, and for most of them during the summer, at least that last couple of weeks before they go back to school, they're grinding to get ready for the fall for their 180 days. So they're not totally off
Absolutely.
the entire summer. So that's just not a very good argument at all. And I think again, that's why a lot of these professionals are saying, you know what, they don't appreciate me, they don't understand what I do, they don't understand that it's
Mm-hmm.
not just teaching, and they don't understand that I don't have no luxurious life because I get off during the summer, and I'm just going to leave. Now, let me say this to you because when you said this about administrative stuff, you and I both know that we have these meetings in higher ed that we have to go to as well. And you've been in
Mm-hmm.
those meetings with me, and you know how I feel about meetings. Um, so you know that meetings are not my thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's another part of why people leave the teaching profession because we get so inundated with, okay, we're changing this, and now you got to do this, and now you got to do that, and now you got to do this. We've been in meetings where our boss has said, okay, we're going to change this, and now you got to do this. Now you got to report. Now you got to figure out why your students not coming to class. Now you got to call them, inquire, and come up with these plans and plots. All those things we have to do that people do not see. That's
Mm-hmm.
behind the scenes. That's not just the classroom, and that stuff is overwhelming. I know for
It's
me,
a lot.
it's overwhelming. It's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is another reason I think that they are leaving the teaching profession. But last thing I'll say is, and this will I'll let you tell us about this because we also had a conversation about the reason they're leaving is because of the students themselves and how that
Mm-hmm.
student has changed and how teaching these students now in this new generation has changed. I think you were the one that told me the story about a student threw a desk or a chair or something at you
Hmm.
in the classroom. Was that you that told me the story?
Yes, that
So
was
tell us
me.
more about tell us more about why that would be a reason that they're leaving the profession.
So, just lack of. I think when we were speaking about that day, I brought up just lack of um, having support from the higher
Mhm.
ups, if you will. In that particular case, I was teaching at an alternative school, and I know what I'm getting into. I know what I signed up for. This is the alternative school, right?
Right.
But I don't. I'm that teacher that will not put you in a box. I'm not going to read all those little anecdotal notes on the roll sheet about you. I'm going to let you prove to me who you are because maybe you changed. Maybe
Hmm.
something somewhere along the way, right? And so I was honestly caught completely off guard. This particular student, I guess she was just having a bad morning, but she definitely came in and said a bunch of choice words. And then before I knew
Wow.
it, there was a desk going across and by a male student. The male student who threw the desk was upset because I asked for homework. And yeah, and I don't know how that escalated to that because I'm definitely not a teacher who's gonna even argue with you. So I don't even know how that escalated to that. It just happened so fast. But I asked for homework. He didn't have homework. Long story short, the desk come flying across the table, and I'm
Wow.
just like, what in the world? My desk stopped his desk. And I'm
Mm.
just like, what in the world? And then when I sent him to the administrator, she sent them back with both of them with a tap on the hand.
Wow.
And I quit. I'm not even gonna sit
Yeah,
here
that was the
and
reason
try
that
to
you
I
quit.
quit. And I
Yeah.
resigned because now you're gonna have this student coming back into my classroom that thinks that they can run my classroom, and discipline is not an area that I have an issue with. I have my own kids at home. So I'm an expert at this. I like to
Hmm.
think. Okay.
Hmm.
And on top of that, I should not feel like I have to discipline kids, you know, and teach them things that I would teach my kids at home. To me, when I'm in that school, there's somebody else's who gets paid for that,
For
not
sure.
me as a
For sure.
teacher. And so, yes, have great classroom management, but some things are above that. And so, yes, I would agree that just having that support, knowing that when a student comes to you, you're going to doubt what they're saying. And I'm so sorry because I was a student at one point too. But to me, if I work for you, you're going to doubt the student and then you still going to come and make sure that the facts are together, but you definitely don't doubt me and agree with the student right off the bat without getting the facts together, because this is not
Mhm.
Walmart. The customer is not always right. Okay. If you will. And I think a lot of times with schools, they do that. Like the higher ups will do that. The student is always right. We are here because of the student, and we get paid because they're here. The fact that they're in the chair is the reason why we have a paycheck, and I understand that. But we cannot
Mhm.
allow these students to think that they 100% rule this classroom like they're in
Mm-mm.
a dictatorship or something, or like they are above the law.
I remember years and years and years ago when I was in school, many years ago when I was in school, I remember when teachers would go to the parents' home and talk to the parents. I remember when we had teaching conferences where the parent would come and talk about the child, and if the child was acting up, that parent would take that child home and say, "Look, you got one more time to mess up in school. Your teacher called
Hmm.
me today," and you would get a spanking or a punishment
They're going to
or
deal
whatever it
with it.
was. Right. But nowadays, which goes to another reason why I think teachers are leaving the profession, is because nowadays in society, we have a totally different generation of parents, right? A totally different generation who are not coming to PTA meetings, who think their little Johnny
Listen.
or Susie or whatever is the best thing since sliced bread. And ain't no way in the
Hmm.
world my baby would have never done nothing wrong. So it must be that crazy teacher. And then you get administrators like you just mentioned that said, well, we got to support the teacher. And what did you do to that poor little student? And so that dynamic is what makes it hard for teaching too, which is these folks who are raising kids nowadays ain't raising kids like they were in my generation, right?
Listen.
In my generation, the child was wrong before the parent was wrong, or before the student was, I mean, before the teacher was wrong.
You had to
Nowadays,
prove the child right. Though the
that's
child had to
right.
prove that they were right. Yes.
That's right.
They were
Nowadays,
guilty until proven innocent.
I'm telling you. But nowadays, it's flopped where now the student is innocent and the teacher's got to prove something. You got to come up
Yes.
and be judged and looked at funny and talk. So that's another reason why teachers say, you know what, I'm not doing that. So that's just what I think about it. So anyway, you mentioned something too. Well, earlier you mentioned about your business that you have with tutoring. I just want to mention to the folks that are listening that to take note the fact that yes, you're in education, Yes, you love your job. Yes, you find value in what you do, but you also found that entrepreneurial spirit too, right? We cannot minimize the fact that yes, you're in education, but we cannot allow education in any fashion to damper the entrepreneurial spirit, because true definition of education is not just a classroom anyway. True definition of education is I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always educating myself. I'm always looking for ways to leverage and to do more and to be more. And so you found that. And so not a lot of educators or not a lot of folks who have degrees will find that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's the missing piece as well to why we don't think college is valuable. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I absolutely agree, I'm one of those that doesn't think that everybody's supposed to be an entrepreneur, right? Because then
Hmm.
who's the consumer, kind of thing. But I also think that there's a level of creativity in everybody.
Hmm.
And so
For
although
sure.
you may not, be the entrepreneur, there's something on the inside that you got to tap into at some point, to be able to make your gift allow your gift to make room for you, because I don't think that you can do that being confined to four walls in a classroom. Allow your gift to make room for you to its maximum potential. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful and thankful that I tapped into that, not even trying to. I was able to tap into that early on. And even like I said earlier, even when I try to let it go, it's kind of like one of those things that just kind of keeps tugging on me and
Hmm.
pulling on
Hmm.
me. And I don't think I'll ever let it go. It's a
Sure.
good feeling to just know that you have a gift, that you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
something outside of, the norm.
Now, and I will say, to me, that is what our classrooms should be, particularly at the higher ed level and even through the K through 12 level. We need to be inspiring these young folks to find that creative space, find that creative niche, find that creative thing. You're right. Maybe it's not going to be an entrepreneurial endeavor. I don't know. But if we're not giving them the opportunity in these classrooms to say, go discover you and what you're meant to be, and not make you just be what we think you're supposed to be based on the standards that some people up in Columbia said you're supposed to be, right? If we're not
Right.
making our classrooms, again, particularly higher ed, and that's going to be my mantra when I come to teach in the fall. If you're not discovering your own individual creative space and finding a way to educate yourself along that path and along that journey, then college has failed you. If you're just doing
Right.
it just to get a piece of paper and just doing it just because that's the standardized way to do things and not opening up your own mind to discover yourself,
You
then
doomed.
education is failing you. So we
Hmm.
all we all have that creative spot. God gave us this creative ability within each and every one of us to be able to discover
Hmm.
that. And until we discover that through education, education is failing. At least that's my opinion. Okay.
And
So
then that just makes me think of something so profound that I believe, which is education is just one conduit. It's just
yeah.
one route. You know, like you said, we can we I feel like, because I'm a teacher, we do all need some form of education. Okay.
Sure.
But it's just one route along
Mm-hmm.
the way to
Mm-hmm.
finding that creative space.
Yeah. Education should be a thing, not where we end our educational goals, but where we begin them. Right. It's
Absolutely.
interesting. It's interesting
That's
that the
good.
word commencement means beginning, and we take commencement to mean end. But if you look up the word and research the word commencement, it actually means beginning. So when you graduate
That'll
from college,
preach.
you're not ending, you're beginning, right? And so
Yes, that's
it's a
good.
tool that I've used for the last 4 years to open my mind, to expand my educational prowess, if you will, to now go and discover more about me. And that's just the jump off for it. So again, that's how we've got to teach education. That's how we've got to teach these classrooms. So anyway, one
That's
last
good.
thought, if you have, yeah, any last thoughts that you have to say a struggling educator or someone who doesn't think college is valuable, or just any closing thoughts that you might have along the topics that we discussed today.
Um, I would say pretty much a culmination of everything that we just said in terms of your degree is more than just your degree. Your education is more than just your education. There are so many tools and resources that you gain along the way that are going to pave the way for your success. Not just that degree, those tools with that degree, those resources with that degree, those connections with that degree. My story in particular, and I'll end with sort of like my little testimony, if you will. Um,
Hmm.
my story in particular, graduated SCC in 2016. USC, I'm sorry, in 2016. That was my second time around in college. My first time was at Limestone, but once I graduated, I knew I wanted to teach after graduating USC Upstate. And when I went into the classroom, like I previously mentioned, I had a degree. So I could have easily said this degree is not making money for me because I went into the classroom. I want to say I made $27,000 my first year. And yeah, 26, $27,000. And that was on a teacher's salary. And they literally looked at me after my first year and was like, you didn't pass the praxis. So since you didn't pass, you do have this education, but you don't have this test. And since you didn't pass, we're going to pay you like a sub the next
Oh
year. So you're
wow.
gonna pay me lower than $27,000, and I got then two kids at home. What?
Wow.
And so I quit. I resigned, and I was like, no, I can't sign this contract. Keep going forward. The next year, got another contract, and that was a little bit better pay. But literally after 1 year, because the state of South Carolina, if you didn't know, you can teach under provision for 1 year, and then at a particular school, and after 1 year, they have to pay you as a substitute in K through 12 if you
Hmm.
do not have a license. And so, literally, after 1 year, they came to me and said the same thing. We have to pay you as a sub. I said, bye. I will not because you're not paying me enough already, right? And so
Right.
that series literally happened. Mind you, I got this bachelor's degree. That series happened 3 times before I got the realization that, hey, I got to move my feet. I've got to find
Hmm.
leverage with this degree that I have. Yes, I'm going to still have this teaching on the side, but what am I going to do next? And so I was like, okay, well, let's get this master's degree. Because again, one thing that they can't take away from you is that education. One thing that they can't take is that degree. It's like your credit card that never bounces. So I went and I got
Sure.
my master's while I was still teaching for that substitute type of pay in 2019 while I was working a part time job at Chick-fil-A and teaching full time. I got this master's degree and I went and tried to do again what I was trying to do. And they were like, nope, no go. And so here I am with not one, not two, but 3 degrees and
Mm.
still could not get above right at 33, $34,000 a year. They were saying, no, you can't even make that much. We got to pay you sub pay. And so I could have easily given up. But it takes something more than just having that degree. It takes you digging deep to see what did I learn in all these years of
Yeah.
trials and what did I learn in all these years of going to school? I learned that I have a voice. I learned that I have value. I learned that the things that I was taught, they can't put a price on that. And so I literally, not to beat my chest, but to encourage somebody, I literally was able to trailblaze my own way in terms of, if you think about it, 2019 was when I got my master's. I told you I started the side hustle in 2018 and got a building in 2019. So literally from that point on, when I realized that, I took that degree and I stood on it. And instead of being ashamed about the fact that I couldn't make the kind of money trying to go the route that I was trying to go, which was the traditional route, I
Hmm.
understood that that wasn't for me. And so I literally took that degree, got another degree, stood on top of it, and said, okay, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah.
Okay, then from there, what can I do from there? And then what can I do from there? And literally one thing led to another. And I do feel like right now I'm ultimately in the place where I love being in higher ed. But who's to say, I can't move up even in higher ed? To me,
Sure.
it,
Sure.
you do whatever your mind allows you to do. Don't allow, sort of like what you said, Frederick, don't allow education to just be that stopping point. I got this degree,
Hmm.
now just give me all the money.
Hmm.
It doesn't work like that. You
It
have
does
to
not.
still work. You've got to still move your feet. You've got to still put in the work after the degree if you want to make it work. And yes, I understand that there are people who don't have to do that, but they are the exception. Majority of us have to work the degree to make it work for us in order to see the manifestation of everything that we've worked for over those years, all the hard
Hmm.
work that we put in, the time that we put in, etc. You've got to make it work for you. And if you're not willing to do that, absolutely, education is not the route for you, I guess. Okay, just go and get that $27 an hour or $30 an hour at BMW or somewhere. No shade to that, because guess what? I worked there too. I worked there for 3 years between my first and my second degree when I was trying to decide where I wanted to do, what I wanted to
Sure.
do. And I quickly realized I'm too creative to be confined to a box. And
Yeah.
so I've got to go back and I've got to make it work for me. I could have easily given up and you could easily give up, but you don't have to. What if you
Yeah.
don't give up? There are so many people connected to your dream and your vision and just, that if you give up now because of some
You're lost.
money, then what? So,
Yeah, and the money will come if you find a way to
absolutely.
leverage it. If you find a way to
Absolutely.
discover your path, because everybody's path is going to be different. So, I think you summarized it perfectly. That education is valuable depending upon how much you utilize the tool of education, how much you utilize the leverage, how much you do something with it. And so that's what brings up the valuable aspect of education. So, thank you, Shamaka. I appreciate that very, very
Yes.
much. This has been The Educator's Voice. I am your host, Frederick Keenan, and I'm not sure who our next guest will be, but if you like this channel, if you think what you're hearing is informative and valuable, please hit the subscribe, notify, and all those buttons in the YouTube sphere and all that stuff. And if you happen to be an educator and you want to come on and share your story and have your voice be heard, reach out to me and I'll be happy to put you on the show as well. So until next time, this is Frederick King again from The Educator's Voice. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.
Thank you.